This is footage taken by me during my last trip back in May to Taipei, Taiwan. I went to the Dr. Sun Yat-sen's Memorial Hall in Taipei. This is one of the most legendary figures throughout China's 5,000-year history. This is the godfather of modern China. I call this guy the Chinese Vladimir Lenin because nobody knows revolutions better than Dr. Sun, and I'm going to share his life story throughout this video. So I'm going to roll through the tape of what I've recorded at the Memorial Hall. It's a great place. I definitely recommend checking it out whenever you have the chance to visit Taipei. And so let's talk about Dr. Sun's incredible life journey. Dr. Sun's life is absolutely out of this world insane. So let's get started. So the story starts back on November 12th, 1866 in Zhongshan, China. I know people usually refer to him as Dr. Sun Yat-sen. I think that's how they call him in Cantonese Chinese or in the local Taiwanese dialect, which is Minnan-hua. But in Mandarin Chinese, he's known as Sun Zhongshan. They actually changed the name of his birth city to match his name. So he was born to a family of very poor farmers. His brother Sun Mei, he got an offer to work in Honolulu in Hawaii. It's very interesting here. And he got a labor contract in the year of 1879. So then Dr. Sun, he took this chance to go with him. He thought, you know what, have the chance to work in the US, I have to take on this offer. And he actually got a chance to study at a British missionary school for the next 3 years. And right after that, he attended Oahu College, which is an American school. So this gave him a great Western influence for the next 4 years in Hawaii. And when he returned home to further his study in Hong Kong, so in 1883, he would be baptized. Like I said, he's very, kind of a little bit whitewashed at this point. So he got baptized in 1883, and he would come out as a Christian. He would marry his first wife, Lu Muzhen, in the year of 1885, and they would go on to have a son, the firstborn, and 2 more younger daughters. Now, Mrs. Lu, she was a victim of foot binding. This is very common for middle-class women back in ancient China. And I did make a video on this. It's absolutely brutal. So, and I did mention in the video that many of these women who suffer from foot binding, they have mobility issues, especially as they get older. So his wife, her mobility was very limited. So she rarely ever left home. So she spent time raising the 3 children at home. And Dr. Sun went on this legendary, revolutionary, and exile journey. Now, I give him the title of a doctor, right? Because he did actually go to medical school. He is a medical doctor. So he attended medical school in the city of Guangzhou. And in the year of 1886, he would transfer to the College of Medicine in Hong Kong. And he would finally graduate in the year of 1892, obtaining the title of a medical doctor. Now, he was extremely embarrassed by the state of late Qing Dynasty China. I've mentioned this in previous videos. China at one point was the #1 country in the world under Emperor Kangxi's rule, but good things never last. You have the Boxer Rebellion, the 2 Opium Wars. China was just totally embarrassed by the Western nations. They suffered humiliating defeats one after another by the Western nations, and they would lose massive wealth and territory. So Dr. Sun, he wanted to see major changes happening in China. He wasn't happy with the emperor system, the fact that this has been going on for 4,000 years, and in his mind, this system must go. But he failed to gain any support in China, so he traveled back to Hawaii, to Honolulu. This is where he founded the Xingzhonghui. This was the literal translation is the Revive China Society. In October of 1894, this is the start of a life full of revolutions. This is the dawn of a new era. So China suffered a total defeat in the First Sino-Japanese War. I have mentioned this before. There were 2 Sino-Japanese wars. The first one was very short, and Japan defeated China easily. And as a result of this loss, the island of Taiwan, which had been under China's rule for over 211 years, would be lost to Imperial Japan. And China had an extremely strong influence on Korea as well. Korea would be lost to Japan. It would enter its dark ages for the next 50 plus years. and the culture of Korea, its history, its language was nearly wiped out. Also, over 200,000 Korean women would become the sex slaves of the Imperial Japanese soldiers. So Dr. Sun, he took this chance to start a rebellion, seeing that how weak China has become. But his first rebellion failed. Trust me, there will be many, many more. And he will be sent to exile for the next 16 years. During his exile, he would travel the world. He first landed in the United Kingdom, and he would spend some time learning more about Western literature at the British Museum. He also lived in Canada before traveling to Japan. Here's where things start to get interesting. So, with the help of the Japanese, Dr. Sun, he staged another uprising to attack the city of Huizhou. He gained support from the local triad gangs. Yes, the triad. I remember watching Rush Hour 2. That's a real gang in China, and I believe it still exists in this day. But you see, this second revolution, once again, it would fail. Yeah, revolutions are they're no easy feats, and things get complicated. And after the second failed revolution, Dr. Sun, he would travel to Bangkok in 1903. He aimed to win support from the local CMEs. Because back then Thailand was known as a CM, and I have mentioned this in previous video. There's a huge Chinese population in Thailand, around 10 million. So 15% of the current Thai population is actually ethnic Chinese. And so he tried to gain support from the Siamese Chinese there for a Chinese revolution. And in 1904, so he actually managed to obtain a birth certificate for a Hawaiian birth. Obviously, he's not born in Hawaii, but he was able to get a certificate. And so Dr. Sun, he tried to enter the U.S. via San Francisco, and due to extreme xenophobia laws at the time, he was temporarily detained. But eventually, he would win this legal battle, and he would travel throughout the U.S. organizing and fundraising events with the goal of overthrowing the Qing Dynasty China. He will also form several revolutionary blocs while traveling to Europe, and in 1905 he became the head of the Tongmenhui, which translates to the United League, all aiming at overthrowing China. Oh, by the way, I do want to mention this. So Dr. Sun, while traveling in exile, I did mention that he was married this whole time, and his wife, due to the foot binding issues, so she stayed in China this entire time. So Dr. Sun, he had an affair with a Japanese minor. Her name is Haru Asada. This really happened, and China does confirm this. Okay, so she was 15 at the time. Dr. Sun was 31, so he put a little bit of a Jeffrey Epstein here while in Japan. And so Haru Asada at the time, she was actually the housemaid, so she was in charge of cleaning Dr. Sun's place where he was living. His love life does get extremely complicated. I'm not sure exactly how many mistresses and affairs he had, but there was quite a few. So I need to mention that he did have another concubine. Concubine is, side woman. That's what you want to call it, the nice term to say it. So in China, and her name was Chen Cuifeng. Her and Dr. Sun, they had a very long-term relationship, and she was actually a major part of the many revolutions that took place. Also, while in Japan, listen to this, Dr. Sun, he got a 13-year-old girl. Yes, 13-year-old girl. Her name is Kaoru Otsuki. He got her pregnant. Yeah, that's pretty sick, but that's also history. So, and this happened when he was 37. So, yeah, there's a 24-year age gap. After finding out about the pregnancy, he actually abandoned this poor little girl, Miss Otsuki. They never got married. She was just a mistress. And he went back to China for more revolutions. And she would end up giving birth to their daughter. And she did live a very long life. She got remarried and she had another son before eventually passing away at the old age of 82 years old. But I guess, this is the normal for all rulers throughout history. Look at Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great, right? By the way, Dr. Sun, this man was 5 feet tall. Yes, this is his confirmed height. And he was still able to get all of these women. Some were much taller than him. So maybe you can also get a girlfriend. Alright, love affairs aside, let's go back to talking about revolutions. So in 1907, the Japanese government, they gave Dr. Sun a massive sum of money, and they asked him to leave Japan. And because they're worried about all of these things that he's plotting, and they didn't feel safe about keeping this guy there. So he would end up traveling to French Indochina, and he put together multiple plots for revolution. And then people were like, oh my god, this guy, like every day he's plotting revolution. He's dangerous. We gotta get this guy the hell out of there. And he was banned in French Indochina. So he spent the next few years touring Europe. He went back to Canada, he went back to the United States, all trying to grow his influence and grow followers to join the United League to overthrow the Qing Dynasty China. And he was able to raise a massive sum of money. He will return to Asia once again. He plotted another revolution in 1910, aiming at capturing the city of Guangzhou, and he failed once again. This is known as the March 29th Revolution. Love him or hate him, you gotta give this man A+ for effort. Don't worry, we're just getting started. It's the year of 1911. Revolution breaks out throughout the country. In the city of Wuhan, we all know what happened there in late 2019, right? So they managed to successfully overthrow the provincial government. The highlight moment of the year of 1911 came on October 10th. So this is known as the Wuchang Uprising. I will cover this in a separate video because this video is getting so long already. So basically, most Chinese citizens, they're so sick of the emperor system and the Qing dynasty, the fact that everybody's suffering and it's gotten so weak. So revolutions broke out everywhere. And finally, October 10th, 1911, Qing dynasty would fall after almost 300 years. And this is the end of the dynasty system for nearly 4,000 years. So Dr. Sun, he actually read this on the newspaper in the US. At this time, he was living in Denver, Colorado. He was quite a journeyman, so he learned about this on the newspaper, and he said, oh my god, my chance has finally come, so this is my time to shine. So he would travel back to China. He went to Shanghai in December of 1911, and right away he was elected provincial president. Now, Dr. Sun, he knows his position in power was very weak, was very shaky, because he's been in exile for 16 years now, and China is now in total chaos. And he needs someone that's powerful to form a coalition. It gets a little bit complicated. Basically, in the end, a bunch of deals made, and Minister Yuan Shikai, this guy here, on February 12th of 1912, the final emperor of China, I will do a separate video on him, Ai Xinjue Luo Puyi, he abdicated his throne. When I say abdicated, well, they kicked him off, right? Because, the dynasty was over. So Dr. Sun, he would become the leader of China for just over 1 day. I know it gets crazy. Then on the 14th of February, Western Valentine's Day, Yuan Shikai would become his successor. These two, Dr. Sun and Yuan Shikai, they were originally allies. And so Dr. Sun was named the Director General of the Railway Development. But, good things never last. Dr. Sun's ally, Song Jiaorun, he was killed by Yuan Shikai's orders. And this led to total chaos. So here we go again. Dr. Sun declares war on Yuan Shikai. He staged another revolution against him. And they were allies, not so long ago. But this revolution, once again, it failed. And he would flee to Japan following the failed revolution. So while in exile once again, he married his secretary, Song Qinling, while he's still married to his first wife, by the way, this whole time. So like I said, his love story is pretty insane. Back in mainland China, Yuan Shikai, his rule was very short-lived because, obviously there's a bloody revolution that just took place. So China basically enters this lawless warlord era where everybody wants to be king and everybody was murdering each other. So Yuan Shikai, he was overthrown in the year of 1916. And Dr. Sun, he saw this news in Japan, and he's like, oh, my time has finally come once again. So he went back to Guangzhou, China to launch another revolution. But this revolution once again failed. And in 1918, this time he did not flee back to Japan. He stayed in China. He went back to Shanghai. So Dr. Sun, then he convinced Chen Jiuming. Mr. Chen, he controlled a massive battalion of armed guards. And he knew that he had the power to help him stage another rebellion. So he convinced this guy to fight General Lu, who back in Guangzhou, he was a military lord. He had a control of a massive army. And the Dr. Sun was able to achieve a victory thanks to General Chen here. So, but this rule was short-lived. He would only rule for a year and 4 months before General Chen would turn against him. So, once again, this revolution failed. Dr. Sun, once again, he would flee Guangzhou to go back to Shanghai. And while back in Shanghai, Dr. Sun, he would once again stage another revolution. So this time he traveled around a bit. He gathered troops from the neighboring Guangxi and Yunnan province. And once he decided that there was enough forces, he launched another attack to Guangzhou. And he finally achieved victory. in February of 1923. And this time, Dr. Sun Yat-sen, he became the Generalissimo of a new China, the Republic of China, after approximately 56 revolutions. So under his new rule of the Chinese Nationalist Party, he elected 3 communists to also represent the Central Committee. And if you're wondering why he will elect 3 communists, this is due to the pressure from the Soviets. And at the time, they were a communist state, obviously. And one of the generals he elected to follow him was this man. I covered his story in a 14-minute video. General Chiang Kai-shek, who is Mao Zedong's lifetime arch enemy. And it was also during this time, Dr. Sun, he would deliver his own doctrine, the 3 principles of the people. So this is an extremely important piece of literature of Chinese history. So this is the 3 principles. First principle, 民族主义, roughly translates to nationalism, the self-determination of the Chinese people and all the minority groups within China. Second principle, 民权, translates to democracy, the rights of the people of China. Final principle, this one's very hard, it's very vague and hard to translate. 民选, it roughly translates to socialism, but I have to apologize because it's not a perfect translation. Even in Chinese, I have a hard time truly understanding this one. So the best way to view it would be equal opportunities for everybody, so everyone's livelihood could be improved drastically. So these are the 3 principles. You can look up this, it's a very famous document. But sadly, on March 12th, 1925, it's the end of the era. So after all these revolutions, Dr. Sun, he only got to rule China for roughly 2 years. And Dr. Sun Yat-sen, he would pass away at the Peking. Peking is modern-day Beijing, the modern-day capital. He passed away at the Peking Union Medical College Hospital at the age of 58. The original cause of death was listed as liver cancer. This was changed to gallbladder in 2016 by an American doctor, but I'm not so sure about this because that was a little iffy because so much time has passed. So I don't know. So 2 causes. It was either liver cancer or gallbladder. His body has been preserved in a mausoleum, much like Vladimir Lenin, and you can visit it to the present day and see his body. And it is in Nanjing, China. What followed his death, it's nearly 100 years of Chinese Civil War. The Kuomintang, the Kuomintang, the KMT, they were split up with Chiang Kai-shek burying the sister of Dr. Sun Yat-sen's widow. It's very interesting. So Chiang Kai-shek, he would basically become the brother-in-law of Dr. Sun, and he claimed to be the reincarnation of the Dr. Sun, the next leader of China. So while Chiang Kai-shek, he led the Kuomintang side, Dr. Sun's widow actually went against her sister-in-law, and she would support the communist side of China all the way until her death in 1981. Yes, she lived a very, very old age. And so Mao Zedong at this point, he has yet to risen to become the face of Chinese communism yet. But many people did before him, so they all believe that they are the reincarnation of Dr. Sun Yat-sen, and they wanted communism to rule over China. So and I talked about this in my previous video, right? The Long March. So after leading just under 8,000 men to the finish line in Shanxi province into Yan'an to end the legendary Long March in October of 1935, Mao Zedong became the undisputed leader of the Chinese Communist Party of the Balujun. He became a god to tens and hundreds of millions of people in China. This was turning point of the Chinese Civil War. Mao Zedong would eventually achieve victory against the Chinese Nationalist Party and against Chiang Kai-shek in 1949. He would fled to Taiwan and he would rule the island for another 26 years. What's interesting is that Mao Zedong and Jiang Jieshi, 2 ruthless dictators, they both lived until a very old age, at the age of 82 and 89, and they died within less than a year of each other. So this is the life of one of the most legendary figures in China's 5,000-year history. He is the founding father of modern China. Nobody can deny that fact. It's a life filled with revolutions, defeats, exiles, and a bit of adultery and pedophilia. So whether you love him or hate him, you have to give Dr. Sun Yat-sen or Sun Zhongshan credit for never giving up after so many failed revolutions and exiles. No, he didn't like the direction of the weak Qing dynasty where they were headed. And he wanted to change the lives of tens and hundreds of millions of Chinese people for the better. He came from humble backgrounds, born to poor peasant farmer parents, but he managed to study medicine and became a medical doctor. He traveled around the world to gain immense knowledge, to spread his influence and his ideologies for a new China, for a new republic, and he raised mass amounts of money to stage multiple revolutions throughout his lifetime. Yes, millions of people died, perhaps even more because of all of these revolutions, but that's history. History is absolutely ruthless, brutal in every way, shape, and form possible. Sometimes tough decisions they have to be made in order for changes to occur, and history is often not black and white. Most of it is gray, and it's difficult for anybody to draw a line of what is right and what is wrong. The Chinese Civil War is still going on to the present day, 98 years after Dr. Sun's death, and the tensions between Taiwan and mainland China, I have to say, it's extremely high right now. And but that's for another video. I've already talked for so long. One last thing I want to mention. I share the same last name as Dr. Sun, and that's how you pronounce it in English. But in Mandarin Chinese, it's pronounced Sun. It doesn't have a meaning. It's just a name. It's just like Michael or Scott or Jason. I just want to share this fact that we have the same last name, and so please hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed this video. I put a lot of effort into it, and if you want to know about Chinese history, whether it's modern China or going back to the last 5,000 years, I have so much more content to share with you guys. And thank you guys so much for watching this video and staying until the end. Bye bye. Hope you have an amazing day.